Something shattered at Interlagos, and it wasn't just carbon fibre. Oscar Piastri arrived in Brazil trailing Lando Norris by a single point. 1 point. The championship fight was alive, intense, and completely open. 24 hours later, he left trailing by 24 points with his title, hopes in ruins. But here's what the headlines won't tell you. This wasn't just bad luck. This wasn't just one harsh penalty. This was the moment Piastri realised that inside a championship fighting team, the margin for trust can evaporate faster than tyre grip on a damp curb. A 10-second penalty he still believes was excessive. A strategy call that left him exposed and defenceless. And the quiet, crushing realisation that his own garage might not be fighting as hard for him as they are for his teammate. That combination hit harder than any lap time deficit. And it might have just cost him the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Saturday's sprint race set the tone for the nightmare to follow. Piastri had qualified P3, showing strong pace, looking competitive. The race started cleanly. He held position through the opening laps, running just behind Norris, seemingly in control. Then turn 3 happened. Piastri's left rear wheel touched a damp patch on the white curb line. Moisture pulled out onto the track by Norris moments earlier. The McLaren snapped sideways instantly. No time to react. No chance to save it. He spun violently into the barriers. The race over in an instant. A silly mistake, really. An unfortunate mistake, Piastri said afterward, his tone measured but the frustration barely concealed. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella called it mixed feelings, celebrating Norris's sprint win while watching Piastri's car get carried away on a flatbed. But the damage went beyond the destroyed bodywork. Confidence, once Piastri's greatest weapon, started fracturing. The driver who dominated the first half of the season with ice-cold precision suddenly looked vulnerable. And in Formula One, once doubt creeps in, it spreads like poison. Sunday's Grand Prix gave Piastri a chance to reset. He qualified P4 behind Norris, Antonelli and Leclerc. Not perfect, but workable. The race started, and he held position through the early laps. Then came the safety car restart on lap 6. And the moment that would define, and potentially destroy, Piastri's championship. As the field accelerated away, Piastri got an excellent restart, closing rapidly on Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes ahead. He spotted an opportunity on the inside into turn 1. A legitimate gap, an aggressive but fair racing move. He committed, hard braking, front axle alongside Antonelli's car. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc attacked the outside, making it 3 wide into one of Interlagos' tightest corners. The space between the inside curbs and outside grass became a pressure cooker. 3 cars, 1 corner, physics working against all of them. Piastri briefly locked his left front tyre, adjusting his braking to avoid heavier contact, but maintained his line. His steering inputs remained controlled. This wasn't a dive bomb. This was calculated, borderline racing executed within the chaos of an intense restart. But Antonelli turned in as if Piastri didn't exist, closed the corner like the inside line was empty. Contact was inevitable. Piastri's front wing touched Antonelli's rear tyre, creating a lateral catapult effect that sent the Mercedes sliding outward, directly into Leclerc's Ferrari. The impact was violent. Leclerc's left front suspension collapsed immediately, the wheel tearing off, his race ending before he reached half distance. Ferrari lost crucial Constructors' Championship points. Leclerc added another DNF to a season full of them, and Piastri became the target of an investigation that would spark one of the year's biggest regulatory controversies. The steward's decision came swiftly and brutally. 10-second time penalty served during his next pit stop. 2 penalty points on his super license. The justification. Piastri was wholly responsible for the collision because he didn't meet the established criteria for overtaking on the inside. According to the FIA's driving standards guidelines, a car attempting to overtake on the inside must have its front axle at least alongside the mirror of the other car prior to and at the apex. The car must also be driven in a fully controlled manner, particularly from entry to apex, and not have dived in. The stewards determined that although Piastri came extremely close to meeting that threshold, he didn't achieve it completely. The centimetre difference was enough, and the brief wheel lock during braking was cited as evidence of insufficient control. Case closed, penalty issued, championship hopes crushed. But here's what makes this decision so explosively controversial. The context was completely ignored. 3 cars entering a tight corner simultaneously, all with compromised trajectories. 0 time for measured reactions or ideal positioning. Antonelli's bad restart creating the initial instability. Leclerc's outside attack eliminating Antonelli's escape route. Yet the regulations were applied with extreme rigidity. A cold textbook reading that dismissed the real messy complexity of wheel-to-wheel racing. Even Charles Leclerc, the driver eliminated from the race, felt the penalty was harsh. Antonelli had to take some responsibility for entering the corner as if the McLaren driver was not behind him, Leclerc commented afterward. When the victim of a collision thinks the penalty is too severe, that tells you everything about how questionable this decision was. Enter Mark Webber, Piastri's manager, and a former F1 driver who knows exactly what championship pressure feels like. Webber felt the penalty was harsh because the incident occurred just after a safety car restart. "I think it's a little like a first lap incident," he said. "Normally, they give a little bit more room for a first lap. Because it was a restart, he got a good restart, Kimi had a bit more room to his right, so he was the meat in a sandwich." Webber's criticism wasn't vague or emotional. It was technical and experienced. He's lived through championship fights that turned on moments like this. He understands how regulatory inconsistency can snowball into psychological damage. 10 seconds, as we know, with this field, that's just so hard to get back, Webber added. Oscar lost a lot of points with that penalty. 23 points to be exact, in a single weekend, because of a penalty many believe was unjust. Jacques Villeneuve echoed Webber's concerns, calling it a tough penalty because that was a good aggressive restart. There'll be some questioning there, but not good for the championship. Even some McLaren engineers privately admitted that Piastri had genuine overlap and executed the move within acceptable parameters. But the FIA's interpretation left no room for nuance. The penalty was devastating. But it wasn't the only problem. McLaren's strategy call might have been even more damaging. During the race, McLaren brought Piastri in for tyres far earlier than optimal. They put him on soft compounds when simulations suggested it wasn't safe, when the data showed he'd suffer high degradation and escalating tyre temperatures. The outcome was exactly as predicted. Piastri lost more than a second per lap to Norris. His stint became a defensive battle against physics rather than an offensive chase for positions. Andrea Stella admitted the team didn't execute perfectly, unusually strong self-criticism for McLaren. But didn't execute perfectly is corporate speak for we made calls that hurt one driver while the other dominated. Because while Piastri struggled with the wrong tyre compound at the wrong time, Norris executed a flawless race with strategy that worked perfectly. Telemetry data revealed the damage. Compared to Norris, Piastri spent nearly 40% more of his opening stint managing temperatures, a direct result of being on the wrong compound at the wrong time. For a driver who thrives on rhythm and clarity, the early stop left him defenceless. Combined with the 10-second penalty, it transformed a potential podium into a 5th-place finish that felt like defeat.